Cowboys Nation, the conversation around the Dallas Cowboys defense is starting to heat up as the offseason approaches, and there's a clear sense that this side of the ball is going to be the main focus moving forward. With the salary cap continuing to rise year after year, the front office no longer has the same excuse of playing things overly safe. If this team truly wants to compete at the highest level, adjustments and calculated investments on defense are no longer optional. They are necessary. The foundation has some promising pieces, but the overall structure still needs reinforcements, especially when looking at how inconsistent the unit was during key moments of the season. One of the biggest talking points centers on the edge rusher position, which remains one of the most important areas for any modern defense. Dallas cannot rely solely on what it currently has under contract, because depth and reliability have been ongoing issues. Bringing back a familiar veteran presence at edge makes a lot of sense, not only because of experience, but also because it buys time and stability while younger players continue to develop. If that reunion does not happen, the urgency increases dramatically, forcing the Cowboys to be aggressive in adding multiple players at the position to avoid a noticeable drop in performance. When looking at potential external options, the trend becomes very clear. These are not flashy, headline-stealing signings meant to break the bank. Instead, the focus is on former early-round picks who still have upside and something to prove. Players in this category often thrive when placed into the right system, especially when they're no longer asked to be the primary star. For Dallas, that approach fits perfectly, as the defense does not need saviors. It needs contributors who can consistently win their matchups and rotate effectively throughout the game. One particular profile that stands out is the edge defender who may not rack up double-digit sacks, but brings steady pressure, solid run defense, and positional versatility. That type of player allows the defensive coordinator to be more creative with alignments and blitz packages, something the Cowboys desperately need to keep opposing offenses uncomfortable. Even if the sack totals are modest, consistent pressure forces bad throws, hurried decisions, and creates opportunities for the secondary to make plays. Linebacker is another position where change feels inevitable. The Cowboys simply do not have enough dependable bodies in that room, and the lack of depth has been exposed far too often. Adding one linebacker would not be enough. The reality is that this defense needs at least two players who can step in immediately, one who brings speed and coverage ability, and another who adds physicality and leadership. Pairing those additions with the current young talent could finally give Dallas a balanced second level that can handle both the run and the pass. There's also an interesting dynamic when it comes to players with prior connections, whether through family ties or familiarity with similar defensive systems. Those reunions are not just feel-good stories. They often translate into quicker adaptation and better communication on the field. A linebacker who already understands the demands of a high-tempo defense and is comfortable playing sideline to sideline could make an immediate impact, even if the previous season was not his strongest statistically. Injuries, of course, play a role in how these evaluations are made. A player coming off an injury might see his market value dip slightly, creating an opportunity for a team willing to take a calculated risk. For Dallas, that type of move could pay off if the medical evaluations are positive and the contract structure provides flexibility. When healthy, those players often outperform their contracts, which is exactly the kind of value the Cowboys should be chasing. The secondary also remains an area of quiet concern. While there are some talented pieces already in place, depth and consistency continue to be question marks. Adding a veteran defensive back who understands positioning, route concepts, and communication could stabilize the group, even if that player is not a household name. At safety in particular, the Cowboys have been searching for a true difference maker for years, someone who can play deep, rotate into the box, and erase mistakes before they turn into explosive plays. Free agency alone will not solve all of these problems, which is why the draft remains a critical part of the equation. Early round selections on defense are expected, especially players who can contribute immediately. Safeties and corners with strong instincts and versatility are highly valued, as they allow the defense to disguise coverages and adapt to different offensive styles. A rookie who can step into a rotational role right away and grow into a starter by mid-season would be an ideal outcome. At the top of the draft, Dallas may find itself in an interesting position where multiple defensive prospects fit their needs, but none stand out as a perfect match. In that scenario, flexibility becomes key. Trading down, accumulating additional picks, or simply selecting the best overall defender on the board are all options that remain on the table. What matters most is avoiding a reach and ensuring that the player selected aligns with the long-term vision of a defense. As this projected version of the Cowboys defense starts to take shape, the picture becomes clearer. The return of key contributors, combined with targeted free agent additions and smart draft selections, could transform this unit from inconsistent to reliable. The potential is there, but it hinges on willingness to adapt, spend wisely, and commit fully to fixing the weaknesses that have held this team back. The next moves will define not just the offseason, but the identity of the defense moving forward, and that identity is still very much being written. Building on that defensive blueprint, the real question becomes how these pieces actually function together once the season begins. Talent on paper only goes so far, and the Cowboys have learned that lesson the hard way in recent years. What this defense has been missing is cohesion, the sense that every player understands his role and trusts the man next to him to do his job. That is where smart roster construction matters just as much as raw ability. When roles are clearly defined, players can play faster, react instinctively, and stop thinking so much before the snap. At edge rusher, the rotation will be designed to keep legs fresh and pressure constant. Instead of leaning heavily on one or two players, the goal would be waves of defenders coming off the edge, each bringing a slightly different skill set. One might be more effective setting the edge against the run, another might excel at bending around the tackle, while a third brings interior pressure on passing downs. That variety forces offenses to adjust protection schemes constantly, which often leads to breakdowns late in games. The linebacker group would benefit tremendously from that consistency up front. When defensive linemen do their jobs, linebackers are free to flow to the ball instead of fighting through traffic. Speed and instincts become the difference makers, especially against teams that rely on quick passes and misdirection. A linebacker who can diagnose a play instantly and close space in a heartbeat changes how aggressive a defense can be, allowing more creative looks without sacrificing discipline. Coverage responsibilities would also become more flexible. With linebackers who can hold their own in coverage, the secondary gains freedom to disguise looks and rotate safeties pre-snap. That kind of movement is crucial in today's game, where quarterbacks are trained to identify coverages almost instantly. A defense that shows one look and delivers another can steal possessions, flip momentum, and turn close games in its favor. The cornerback room, while not flashy, would be built on reliability. Physical corners who understand leverage and timing may not always make highlight plays, but they limit explosive gains, which is just as valuable. When combined with a safety group that communicates well and plays with discipline, the entire back end becomes harder to exploit. Missed assignments decrease, coverage busts become rare, and opposing quarterbacks are forced to string together long drives instead of relying on quick strikes. Safety, in particular, would finally take on a more prominent role in shaping the identity of the defense. A versatile safety who can play deep, roll into the box, and support the run gives the coaching staff countless options. That flexibility allows the Cowboys to adapt week to week, matching personnel to opponent tendencies instead of forcing one rigid scheme onto every matchup. Over the course of a long season, that adaptability can be the difference between surviving injuries and collapsing because of them. Rookies would also play an important role in this equation. While expecting immediate stardom is unrealistic, young defenders can still contribute in meaningful ways early on. Rotational snaps, special packages, and situational roles allow them to grow without being overwhelmed. As the season progresses, those roles can expand naturally, especially if the veteran presence around them provides guidance and stability. One of the most encouraging aspects of this approach is that it balances short-term competitiveness with long-term sustainability. Instead of pushing all the chips in for 1 year, the Cowboys would be building a defense that can evolve. Contracts are structured to maintain flexibility. Draft picks are developed instead of rushed, and the overall unit gains continuity rather than constant turnover. There is also a psychological element to consider. A defense that believes in its structure plays with confidence. Missed plays do not spiral into long stretches of poor performance because the system itself provides answers. Players trust that if they do their jobs, the defense will hold. That confidence is contagious and often shows up most clearly in critical moments, such as late game stops or red zone stands. As the season unfolds, this version of the Cowboys' defense would not be defined by one superstar, but by collective execution. Pressure would come from multiple angles, coverage would tighten as games progress, and opponents would find fewer easy opportunities. It is the kind of defense that may not dominate headlines every week, but steadily wears teams down, forcing mistakes and capitalizing when it matters most, setting the tone for how the Cowboys want to compete moving forward. That steady identity would also influence how opponents prepare for Dallas each week. Offensive coordinators would no longer circle one weakness to exploit repeatedly, because the defense would be built to adjust on the fly. If teams try to attack the edges, the rotation and discipline up front can hold firm. If they attempt to spread the field and target linebackers in coverage, the added athleticism in the middle limits those windows. That kind of balance forces offenses to play honestly, which already tilts the chess match in favor of the defense. Another important factor is how this defensive structure complements the rest of the team. When the defense can get stops without being on the field for extended stretches, it naturally creates better game flow. Time of possession evens out, momentum swings become more controlled, and the overall pressure on the roster decreases. Instead of feeling like every drive is a must-score situation, the team can play with patience, knowing the defense is capable of holding its ground and flipping the field when needed. Over time, that consistency can redefine how the Cowboys are perceived across the league. Rather than being seen as a team that lives and dies by shootouts or big plays, Dallas could become known for discipline, adaptability, and resilience on defense. That reputation alone changes how games are played against them, making opponents more cautious and less aggressive. Those small edges, stacked week after week, are often what separate teams that simply make the postseason from those that are truly built to last deep into it. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Whispers have started circulating around the Cowboys training facility, hinting at an unusual dynamic that could reshape the perception of the team's leadership. Brian Schottenheimer, officially recognized as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, has long been respected for his tactical mind and offensive acumen, with a resume that includes stints as offensive coordinator for Seattle, New York, and previously Dallas. Yet, recent observations at practice have raised eyebrows and fueled speculation among insiders and fans alike. Sources claim that team owner Jerry Jones has been seen more than once stepping onto the practice field, clipboard in hand, issuing direct instructions to players, sometimes mid-drill. While owners visiting training camps is not uncommon, the reports suggest an intensity and specificity in Jones' interactions that some interpret as edging into coaching territory. The nickname Puppet Master has even started making the rounds in casual chatter, a tongue-in-cheek nod to the idea that Schottenheimer's decision-making might be influenced or at least closely monitored by the team's famously hands-on owner. The implications are intriguing. Schottenheimer is a professional coach with a background in developing NFL offenses, a reputation built on structure and strategic thinking. If Jones' involvement is indeed shaping daily practice and play-calling philosophy, it could signal a new, unconventional approach to leadership within one of the league's most high-profile franchises. Critics worry it may create tension or confusion, while some fans speculate it could be a secret weapon, direct oversight from a seasoned NFL executive blending with a coach's tactical expertise. Adding fuel to the rumor mill is the timing. The Cowboys are in a period of transition, seeking consistency and identity under Schottenheimer's tenure. A more visible presence from Jones could be interpreted as either a lack of faith in the coaching staff or a hyper-engaged method to accelerate results. Observers note that the energy on the practice field seems charged, with players visibly responsive to instructions, yet the exact hierarchy of influence remains opaque. In sports circles, these kinds of dynamics can have ripple effects far beyond the practice field. Analysts are already debating whether this level of owner involvement is sustainable and whether it could redefine how fans, media, and even opposing teams perceive the Cowboys' leadership structure. For now, all that's certain is that Schottenheimer remains the head coach in title, but whispers around the league suggest the real playbook may be shared. One part strategic coaching, one part Jerry Jones' unmistakable imprint. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.